Today we're going to review week 20, so January 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 7th. First thing to point out, I'm heavy, 202.66 pounds. Holy cow, which is not great when jumping. Now we get some slow-mo videos just to showcase where our lower limb segments are at, how well we're allowing ourselves to put force through that leg. We have a few metrics to look at. So our CMJ first one, 7.71 inches. A lot of other braking forces and force at minimum displacement I'm looking at in particular. Some depth drops. Force at minimum displacement is 194. Pretty good. Now, the relative amount in terms of left and right side can be important in this. I'll pause the video right there. Another CMJ, 14.26 inches. Now let's look at that force time graph. A little bit smoother on both sides. As you can tell, there's some slight counter movements. So when I say that is I'm going down, it looks like a fluid motion the whole time, just like an isometric pull. You want a streamline up. You don't want a counter movement that's going to not be a good indicator, predictor of that isometric force. That being a negative in that aspect in terms of isometric, counter movement jump, but we see these deviations dipping down, up and down. That is not indicative of the most effective, efficient way to go about this movement. Jumping up and down, same thing. I can tell the landing forces here are a bit drastic. Braking rate of force development down 44.7%. This is over my overall average at the time. Previous 5 sessions. Now, box height was only 8 inches. System weight was 900 newtons. But the peak force still got to 2,826 newtons. So at the very bottom, even though they're 8 inches, we're getting to 314% of peak relative force. So take my body weight out of the equation. Amount of force, 314%. Insane. Left force at peak, 1863. Right force at peak, 963. Double on the left compared to the right. Something to take into account. And then we get a little bit better with the second to last attempt, which was 1,274 newtons on the right side. Good work. Left side, 1,326. Peak relative force was only at 289. Box height didn't change. The way in which our strategy and how we absorb that force, I hate the term absorb force. It's not a real thing. How we produce force to decelerate our body mass compared to the ground was a bit smoother. Not the smoothest, not by any means. Not bad. Let's see the last one right here. 326. Box height was still at 8 inches at peak. Healthy side, 1,369. Right, 1,564. So it had more force. Now, if we zoom in, we can see that it occurred a little later. Yeah, touchdown first. It's like, oh gosh, that's a little bit too much force. Shift to the right a little bit. And this is all in milliseconds. That occurred from 1.7 to 1.8 milliseconds where there's these deviations. That's why force weights are so important to look at those ground reaction forces and how you're interacting with the ground. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Now let's get back to our segment. Starting back on the 3rd of January. Got some single leg calf raises. The right side first. This is more of a testing. I believe the threshold for this is 20 reps. Now that's all indicative that the individual can get to a full range of motion. My top end range of motion in terms of standing is limited right now. Now, the first thing you can think of is elongation of that Achilles. At the same time, even though I can't get into that top range of motion, I am having difficulty getting into a fully dorsiflex position compared to my left, not even close. So I'm not necessarily worried about that at this current moment. Just regaining strength and as much range of motion as possible is the goal, improving the mobility, and then also making sure that I'm showcasing or putting myself through different stressors. Say in this plantar flexion, yes, Achilles helps with plantar flexion, we all know this, but how that force is applied, whether it is in this donkey, leaning over like a donkey heel raise, or if it's a negative step aspect, the timing and tempo at which we put force into the ground during the eccentric and concentric, or how we go about it with the isometric, and everything prior to the isometric is super important. It's a great way to go about velocity-based training in a rehabilitative way, which I think is super, super interesting. We always look at peak forces, but we don't look at how those forces are applied over time and during what phase does it occur. Nice. Then we've got these isometrics that are this anterior-posterior, so forward, back. And then also we have this lateral aspect. Now, I didn't get into the shin angles that I wish I could have gotten into just because the floor was super slippery and I'm wearing these barefoot shoes that used to have grip, but they're kind of wearing down. I did get a second pair of these in the high-top version just to kind of try them out, even though I'm a low-top shoe person. And no, I don't think it's from the shoes. I have had other hypothesis that I forgot to put out there. I feel like I was a little too soon to put out these thoughts, and that's a learning lesson, because I also forgot that I had this skateboarding injury that I talked about last time during COVID. Nice. And these are our little marches, straight leg marches, and then into our sled pushes. Now I did these with shoes first, and then I went back and did them without shoes because I definitely wanted to look back and see, okay, this is my foot placement. I'm trying not to be directly aware, like looking down, to have that feedback of how I'm placing my foot into the ground. I think it's super important that you go about certain actions and then look at it after and be like, okay, this is what my natural tendency was to do. Because in sport, we're going through these um, high magnitude actions, such as counter movement jump, and that's my goal is to hit a 50-inch max approach jump. I'm not going to be thinking about in real time, like, okay, I need to have my foot placed in here and here. I'm just going to think, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to perform. That's what good athletes are supposed to be doing. I'm not calling myself a good athlete. I'm just saying that the mentality, the mindset, the psychology of it, you're not trying to think about it in real time. But we had a few different variations, a slight negative aspect to these with these weighted, although I'm holding at my side compared to above, they can make a difference in terms of that line of tension. And then we had these extensive plyos, kind of the negative steps back and forth, both left and right side. These were fun to add in and definitely smoked me. I had to take a little bit more of a rest after this, but cool. Hope you enjoyed. We have week 21 coming up soon, but this was week 20.